Okay, right. How to divorce an abusive partner or a difficult partner. Now, as we go through this, you're going to see that I use the word difficult a lot instead of abusive. Now, that is not in any way, okay, I want to make this really clear. It's not in any way to diminish the intensity or the significance of the abuse. It is not. It is wrong. It shouldn't have happened to you. And there is no excuse for it at all whatsoever. However, my role is to really help you start to take your control back. Okay, and that's going to mean dialing down some of those negative emotions. And words are really powerful, guys. So watching what you say and the words you use is going to affect you. So abuse is a very hard-hitting word. A difficult person dials down the intensity of that word, so the trigger effect on you isn't going to be as bad. And when I say trigger effect, I mean the reaction you have to certain things that send you back to some of those negative emotions and experiencing them again. And also, the other good thing about this is that it just takes away a lot of the significance from them, okay? Because they're going to take as much significance as they get, as we know. So this is just dialing it down and squishing it. So that's another reason, but you'll see as we go through. So some of the stats are very hard hitting. So 1 in 4 women, 1 in 5 children, and 1 in 6 men experience domestic abuse. A woman dies every 3 days in the UK as a direct result of domestic abuse. Every 3 days. On average, it takes 5 years for someone to leave an abusive relationship. 5 years seems like a long time to people outside of this who don't really have any experience of it, but we're going to talk about why that happens. And 30 women a day, this is UK stats, try to commit suicide as a direct result of domestic abuse. Now that is shocking and it's very upsetting, but it's a fact. So I just have to say at this stage, if you are in immediate danger, please call the police. Okay, that is your one go-to that is essential. Now you'll see at the bottom of the slide, it says the Dash charity. The Dash charity are a domestic abuse charity. Dash stands for Domestic Abuse Stops Here. And they support women, children, and men in some cases through domestic abuse. And they have refuges around the country. Now, I'm the patron of Dash, and because of that, we have teamed up to bring you this program to show you, to share this information with you. So you know that all this information is at the standard of a registered domestic abuse charity that I'm sharing with you today. So abuse is not normal and it is not acceptable, okay, in any way. Okay, I talked a little bit about difficult people. It's about dialing down some of those negative feelings we get when we talk about abuse, but it is abuse, okay? And as I said right at the beginning, I would love you to get more clarity on what it is so that you can start to take action, because clarity gives you power. Clarity gives you power because you have more information to make better decisions. And that's what I really want for you. And I hope you get some of those today. And just it's so important to know that it's not your fault. It really isn't, guys. None of this is your fault. Okay, you may have been told by your abuser, your difficult person, that it's all your fault. I get that, but it's not. Okay, this is not your fault, and you will be okay. And the thing is, at this point, I'm just asking for you to have the hope and belief that you will be okay and you will get through this. You won't know the how necessarily right now, but just knowing that you will be okay, and that there are other people that have been where you are and are where you are as well who can support you is really important. And as I said before, you might get some light bulb moments, and what I mean by that is sort of realizations or sort of jigsaw pieces falling together in the next 45 minutes. So that's okay, and that's a good thing. Okay, it's all about getting more clarity and then enabling yourself to take small steps every day to start feeling better. So let's be clear, what is abuse? Well, the government current definition of abuse is any incident or pattern of incidents of controlling, coercive or threatening behaviour, violence or abuse, and that could be psychological, physical, sexual, financial or emotional, so all of those, between those aged 16 or over who are or have been intimate partners or family members, regardless of gender or sexuality. Of course, there are different types of abuse, different kinds. There's physical abuse, sexual abuse, abuse to your children, tends to often happen post-separation, so post-separation abuse. A lot of people will believe that once you get out of a toxic relationship, you're free. But for those of you with children, then that they can be a source of control for your ex over you going forward, as well as when you're in the relationship, of course. Coercive controlling behaviour, economic abuse, and psychological abuse. So there's lots of different types of abuse. How do we get into abusive relationships? So this is something that is, I don't know if any of you have ever had a friend say, well, you know, why did you stay? How did you get into it? The thing is, if your ex showed up on the first day as they were, and I'm not going to generalize, but the facts are, and the Domestic Abuse Charities evidence and research shows that predominantly this is domestic abuse in relationships is something that predominantly affects women. Okay, so if I say she and he, it's not always. There are men, of course, who experience it as well, but predominantly it is a female experience, but there are both. So I just want to make that clear. There are men and women that go through this. But, you know, if your ex showed up on day one as they were at the end of the relationship, well, you would say, sling your hook, off you go, because you wouldn't tolerate it. That's not how it works. On day one, they're busy love bombing you. They're making you feel $1 million. They are making these huge promises that you're going to be, you are the love of their life. They're completely madly in love with you. You're their soulmate. They'll be taking you out and spoiling you, making you feel $1 million. Okay, it could be holidays, could be nice restaurants or gifts. And remember, to get into a relationship with someone like this, you have to be highly empathetic, and that means very understanding. You are very forgiving. You want to help people. You might be a fixer. You might be someone that wants to make someone better, but that doesn't matter. It still doesn't mean that it's your fault. Okay, this is not your fault, but I'm just trying to explain how we get in. Okay, because they're certainly not like this at the end. Okay, so they're best foot forward, showing you who they need to be for you to fall in love with them at this point. So is it love? I mean, one of the questions my clients say to me a lot is, well, did they ever love me? You know, for you, you were in love, you fell in love with them, but for them, is it real love? Now, you know, most of the time, you know, I'm not a neurologist or an iatrist or an analyst. Okay, I'm a coach, but I've been through this and I know this subject inside out. Okay, so I'm talking from experience. They are rarely capable of love because they have no emotion. They lack empathy. Okay, and to love someone, you've got to care about someone and worry about them and want to make them happy. That does not exist with these people. Okay, but they're very good at mimicking, they're very good at copying behavior, and they're very good at adapting to do the behavior in that moment that's going to get them the result that, guess what, gets them what they want. Okay, and quite a lot of the time they are dependent on your love and adoration to survive. They need that supply of love and adoration from you in order to survive. Okay, so actually their love is really a gratitude. It's a form of gratitude to you for giving them that uninterrupted supply of adoration, love. You're amazing, wonderful, this is great. Okay, but remember, you're falling in love with them in the first impression. Okay, because if they could turn up like up here and this is who they are, this amazing person who's taking you on all these amazing trips maybe, or just promising you the world and making you feel more loved than you've ever felt before, and then their behavior shows up, which is not up here, it's down here, but you fell in love up here and that's where you are hooked into. Okay, so quite often people say, well, how come I'm still in love or have all these strong feelings for them when they're treating me really badly? But that's because you're in love with this. You fell in love with this. Now, does it exist? Maybe there's fleeting moments of it, but more than likely it's not who they are or ever were. It's who they pretended to be to get you hooked in the first place. Sometimes with some relationships, they fizzle out over time or they get worse over time. So that person may have been more like that then because of maybe addictions or other things that have spiraled or situations that have just unfolded during the relationship. That has changed. But remember, you got hooked into that first impression. So knowing that that was what you fell in love with and it doesn't really exist anymore can help you unhook and move on. So how does the control grow? Well, it grows over time. super slowly sometimes. You know, you can have 6 months of everything being relatively okay, but then little things will start to happen. Now, if you think about your boundaries when you went into that relationship, and by boundaries, I mean, what was acceptable behavior for you? And you know, you will have had sort of, if you can imagine your boundaries as like a brick wall around you, made up of individual bricks. Okay, so your wall was maybe up to here when you started, but then over time they'll say something like, maybe they'll call you a name, so a brick is removed, and you don't say anything, so that brick stays out. Or you kind of think, oh, that didn't feel right, but I don't want to cause a fuss. It wasn't that big a deal, I'll laugh it off. Then something else happens, another brick comes out, then maybe more and more. And over time, your bricks of what is acceptable behavior are removed. And because you're empathetic and you don't want to cause a fuss and you don't want to be difficult, and you know, maybe in the beginning it's all sort of honeymoon phase and you think, oh, they can't really mean it, those bricks come out pretty fast until your boundaries of what is acceptable behavior in a relationship are completely gone. So how do you know if your partner has an abusive personality? Look, this is not a, you know, one size fits all, but these are the general signs, okay? So a sense of self-importance, living in a fantasy world. So, you know, maybe it's a sense of entitlement, or maybe it's, you know, just that everything in their world has to be a certain way. A constant need for praise and attention. They have no shame or guilt, so they can do something really awful, really embarrassing for them, you would think, but actually they don't see it that way. They've got God complex. They think they're above everything, the authorities, everything. They are the top of the pile, okay? They are a very convincing liar and often con artist. They never accept blame or the consequence of their actions, okay? They never, ever do. They bully, they belittle, and they intimidate. That's the way they operate, okay? And it may feel sometimes that some people sometimes think that abusers can be abusive just to one person, and the family courts may well fall into that. Don't get me started on the family courts. But, you know, quite often, you know, well, always, you cannot be an abuser just to one person. This is something with lots and lots of people, if not everybody in your life, okay? So, you know, it's never to one person. Mirroring as well. Now, what is mirroring? This is something that if you can understand this, it really will help you. So mirroring is when an abuser will accuse you of something that they're doing. Does that make sense to you guys? Quite often they'll accuse you of being difficult, or accuse you of being confused about something, or accuse you of not being very kind or not very nice, when actually it's them. So quite often they say, well, you're not being very nice to me. You go, hang on a minute, you're the one that's being unkind to me. They put it on you. Now, because of your highly empathetic personality, which you have to stay in a relationship with them, because otherwise you wouldn't, because of that, you'll be going, oh, was it me? Did I do something? Did I say something? Maybe I did. Oh, okay. Well, I can kind of see why you might see it that way. So it's quite often a highly effective strategy that they use. And remember, they are textbook. Okay, it might seem like you never know which way they're going to go, and sometimes you don't, but they are textbook in what they do. Okay, they are textbook. So if you can learn to spot the signs, instead of taking it as an emotional hit, you'll be able to start taking it as seeing it for what it is. Okay, and I'm going to show you how to do that in a moment. But a lot of them have addictions. They're all or nothing. So it's either they're all into the gym, or they're all out on the fast food, or they're all into the drugs, or they're not doing anything. It's all or nothing with them. Charming as well, but dangerous with it. So what are the signs that you are in an abusive relationship? How can you tell if your relationship is abusive? Well, these are very common symptoms. You feel like you're walking on eggshells. So maybe you hear the door go and you know your ex is coming home, and suddenly you get tense. You start feeling, oh gosh, what mood are they going to show up in? And also things like thinking about what you're going to say before you say it. Does that sound familiar? You know, thinking about it, not being able to speak freely, not being able to voice your opinion unless you know it's what they're going to want to hear. Gaslighting, again, very common. Gaslighting means confusing behavior. Okay, confusing behavior, so that, you know, you remember events a certain way and they retell it. Like they might even create a complete false truth of what happened. You know, fake news is their thing. I mean, Donald Trump was doing all of this on a global stage and shining a light on what gaslighting is. The only thing that with him was so brilliant from my perspective in a lot of ways was that you can rewind the tape from that conference or that speech or that, you know, statement that he gave, and you can actually say, well, hang on, you said this and now you're saying this. It's completely opposite. So when he said things with total certainty and people were like, oh, that's strange, I'm confused because I thought before he said that, you can go back and check with him. So actually it was quite an educational experience from that perspective to see someone that was incredibly difficult and how they operate, because a lot of people would never have believed that that was true, to tell such huge lies. People just assume nobody will tell such huge lies, so they can't be a lie, it must be true. And that's why they get away with so many things. Lying, I mean, compulsively, that's what they do. Slow erosion of confidence and self-esteem because you're doubting yourself, because that self-doubt is rising. They'll often isolate you from family and friends. They might do it in a nice way. I say nice in inverted commas, but they might say, oh, do you know what? I don't really fancy going out tonight. Do you mind if we don't go? Now, being nice, kind, empathetic, you might go, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, I understand you've had a tough day. I'll cancel. And then it happens again. Or it might be, oh, do you really want to go all that way tonight? And in the end, you know that it becomes too much to even ask, so you don't bother anymore. Or maybe they tell you they don't like spending time with those people, or that they're not sure they're the right people for you. But they find a way to put a wedge between you and the people that you depend on and rely on, so you become more dependent on them. Quite often they live a double life. Maybe they've got another family or children you don't know about, or, you know, I mean, it could be anything, but quite often they have a whole load of secrets that you don't know about, or that you think things are a certain way when actually they're not that way at all. They will control your personal freedom. So if you pop out, they want to know where you are. I've got a client at the moment, he tracks his wife on the way home from school, on the way home from work, and to the point where he even noticed when she stopped at traffic lights for 10 minutes because the lights were out, and he accused her of meeting someone at the traffic lights, when honestly for her it was just roadworks and she got slowed down, but he'd been monitoring to that degree that he knew that she stopped for extra time at those traffic lights. So that's an extreme case, but it can just be wanting to know where you are all the time and making sure that they're checking in with you if you are allowed to go and do things. Financial control, controlling what you spend, watching what you spend, making you accountable for everything you spend. Obviously there's no rules for them, they can do what they like, but for you, you're very controlled. Maybe they've got the money and you don't, so they drip feed to control you. And again, emotional, verbal, and physical abuse. So those are the sort of big key signs. So why do we stay? Well, we stay because, as I said before, we understand and we don't want to make things worse. We want to make it better for our partner. If they're having a bad day, we're not going to, have a go at them. We're going to, comply and be understanding. You're going to try and appreciate their point of view. Hopefully, in some ways you might think you could possibly fix it for them and help them, and you want to stay and support them because you genuinely love them and care for them. But this cycle, I call it the hamster wheel cycle. It's a pretty cute hamster, but it's not a cute cycle. How it starts is there's a build-up of tension. So maybe you just have a feeling, a gut feeling. Sometimes it can be days, sometimes it can just be seconds, but you know something's going on. It's going to kick off. And then you get the abusive incident. So that might be name calling or putting you down, confusing behaviour, or violence, or any of the things we've already discussed. So what happens then? Well, that makes you retreat because you're hurt, you're upset, you're confused maybe, and they can feel you pulling away. Now, the most important thing to them is control, because they need that supply of adoration, as we talked about before, from you. So if you start to pull away, they then worry that you're going to stop that supply, which they are dependent on from you to survive, remember. So this is why you quite often will see crying, tears, I'm so sorry, apologies, excuses. You might get, well, it's your fault, you did this, to make sure that you don't have a go at them or confront them with it. But what will happen is the incident then becomes forgotten. Okay, so it might be that it's the next day, or it might be straight away, whenever it is, they'll, as soon as they feel you pulling away, they'll try and reel you back in. And then maybe the next day they'll wake up and they'll be like, hey, I've made you a cup of tea and let's go out for the day. And you'll be like, oh, okay, well, number one, relief, thank God, that's done. He's forgotten about it, or she's forgotten about it. But you don't want to bring it up again because you don't want to risk that cycle again. So you go, okay, well, maybe that was a one-off. Maybe that's not going to happen again. Or just thank God this isn't done. Let's just get on with life because I don't know what to do about this. And then you stay in that cycle and it keeps going on. So how do you deal with an abusive ex? Okay, guys, this is really, really important. Okay, this information is not out there anywhere, and this is why I'm sharing it, because I can't tell you how helpful this is if you understand this. A lot of people will physically withdraw from an ex. Okay, so maybe you're separated now. Great. Maybe you're living in different places. Great. However, if it's still going on and there's still this contact, the challenge is we can physically detach, but emotionally, if you're still being emotionally affected negatively by your ex, then you're still caught up in that toxicity. Okay, they play games with everybody in their life. Okay, and I don't really like the idea of you being in a game, but the fact is, if you are in a relationship of any kind with an abuser, you're in a game. So you can either learn the rules of the game, master the rules of the game, and be 2 steps ahead, or you're always going to be battered because they're going to be playing the game with you like a pawn, moving you around, whether you like it or not, or are conscious of it or not. So these steps are really, really important to helping you take your control back. Is to understand you're in a game and to protect yourself emotionally from what's going on. Now, how do you do that? Well, to emotionally detach yourself, it's a great place to start by recognizing this is a game. This is a game that they are playing, okay? And you're in it. So I want you to start thinking about it as you are Sherlock Holmes in this game, okay? So there's 7 steps to this. First of all, know what you're dealing with. So that's understanding some of the information we've talked about today. Number 2 is taking off your rose-tinted glasses and realizing that they are not the wonderful person you fell in love with. Remember that you got hooked into. This is not who they are truly, okay? If they ever were, to be honest. And I know that can be really upsetting, but you've got to get past the point of being hooked into who you hope they were, or the potential of them maybe going back to them as amazing as they have been on certain times, because it was fleeting. Then noticing your triggers, okay? Understanding what sets you off, whether it is a text or an email, maybe it's a certain look, understanding what triggers those negative emotions for you. And then being able to set some realistic expectations, okay? I'm going to talk about that in a bit, to enable you to take back your control over them. Now, the thing is, if you understand that you're in a game, to take back your control when they're doing certain things, so maybe they make a nasty comment, or maybe they phone you because they want something, okay? The question is not to take that emotional impact on you, but to say, right, okay, this is a game. Which of the checklist of the signs of their behavior, or the tactics or behaviors that they use, like we've just been through, like gaslighting and lying and confusing behavior, what tactic are they deploying right now? It's a very different approach when you're asking yourself, right, what is their goal with this? What is the outcome? What tactic are they using? And what are they trying to achieve? That is a very different question to, why are they hurting me? Why do they keep doing this? Why didn't they understand that that's not right, or that's confusing? And stops you going down the rabbit warren that they want you to go down and chasing threads around, especially if you're going through a divorce. It can be extremely expensive, getting distracted with all different sorts of things. The thing is, you've got to look at what are they trying to achieve, because it is a game, remember. So everything they do is calculated and done for a reason. So if you're mastering the game, you are not looking at it from, oh my goodness, they hate me, why are they doing this, what's wrong with them? We're never going to get the answers to those questions, and the list of what's wrong with them is going to be too much to cope with. So what we want to focus on is, what's their outcome from this? What's their intent behind this? And then if you can almost have a checklist of those different behaviors, then the important thing is that you can say, right, okay, I'm checking off the behaviors. I can see that was gaslighting, that was confusing, that was emotional abuse, that was financial control. You can keep ticking those things off so you can see This is a game, and these are the tactics. It's not rocket science. These people are textbook. When you start to realize that it's textbook behavior, that they all operate the same system. Your pet difficult person is no different from the tactics being used. I mean, there might, some are more violent, some are more emotional. I get that. But under all the strategy of why they're doing some things to control you is going to be the same. So being able to tick the box, just to look at it more dispassionately, not focusing on the emotion, is going to really be important. And then remembering to trust you, remembering to trust your instinct, okay? Because your instinct is like, I always call it your internal burglar alarm, okay? It will go off, won't it? You'll feel uncomfortable. They'll do something, or just get that feeling, okay? That either something's wrong or something's about to kick off, or that's not right, but maybe you don't want to say anything. That's when in a toxic relationship, we squash that down. So what you find is coming out of a relationship, in order to recover, you're going to need to tap back into your instinct again and start listening to your internal burglar alarm. When it goes off and it's like, I get those feelings, this doesn't feel right, it's not right. Okay, it's not right. And you need to learn to trust yourself again, to trust your instinct, because that's your body's way of protecting you. Okay, and we've got to learn from this. And then shifting your focus onto you and not them. And that can be difficult, but focusing on what you're going to do in your life and how you're going to move forward and what's good about what's coming up for you and what are you grateful for right now are all going to be really empowering tools to help you through this. So going through a divorce, I'm going quick through this, guys, but I'm running a retreat on this where it's like 5 live webinars with me and we go into so much more detail. But in this, I'm just going to try and get through as much as I can because I want to help as many of you as I can. So if you're going through a divorce, this is going to be a lot tougher, I'm afraid, than divorcing a normal person. Normal meaning they're not intent on punishing you. Normal people, when they go through, you might have an argument over who gets the piano, right? Or who gets what when you're dividing up things. That's not what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about here is people that want to annihilate you, to crush you, to leave you with nothing, to cause you as much pain as possible. They might disguise it, but that's their ultimate outcome. Okay, that's their mission. Okay, so they're not going to change. How they are with you and how they were in the relationship is exactly how they're going to approach the divorce. They're going to be obstructive, difficult, misleading, definitely confusing. They're going to be able to state untruths with chilling certainty that's even going to make you doubt what you know as a fact. They're going to manipulate and they're going to try to bully and intimidate you. Okay, so I know it's tough, but if you know what you're going into, it's going to enable you to be much more prepared. If you don't know this information, and when you go in, you get back to thinking, oh my God, I didn't know it was going to be like this. I thought my lawyer was going to stop all that. Unfortunately, sometimes the lawyers, your ex's lawyer, becomes the mouthpiece of the abuse. Not all lawyers will go extreme, but some do. And I've seen it with clients. And, as I said before, don't get me started on that. But, it does happen. So just knowing that and helping you to navigate will help you to navigate that path. Okay, so common tactics during a divorce are telling you that you don't need a lawyer, making unfair offers, not providing financial clarity, being too late to disclose information or just not doing it at all, really confusing the process by appearing to be compliant, but then sending confusing documents or documents with missing information. As I said before, using legal professionals to be the mouthpiece for their abuse, and then using children to continue post-separation abuse. So one of the tools that will help you cope with this, okay? Expect the worst and prepare for that. Now, basically, why we keep getting upset is because we're highly empathetic, right? And if you are a highly empathetic person, you're going to want to see the best. No matter what you know from your own pain and experiences with them, you're going to want to expect the best. So maybe this time it won't be as bad. Maybe this time they'll be okay. So what we do is we set our expectations up here. But then what happens is the reality comes in down here. Now, the gap between where you've expected them or hoped they'd come in and where they actually are is what? It's disappointment, hurt, and pain for you. And we want to avoid that. So how do you avoid that? Well, what you do is you take those expectations and you put them on the floor. Okay, I mean, like as low as you can possibly get them. Expect that they're going to say something really nasty when you open that text message, or expect that that email is going to say something really horrible and intimidating. Okay, prepare to read that, prepare to have that. Because if you're prepared and you're expecting it and you're treating it as a game and you're looking at it as Sherlock Holmes going, I wonder what the tactic is going to be in this email or on this phone call or on this text message. If you go in prepared for that, then you're going to have a better tolerance to it when it happens, okay? And then if there is anything that is better than that, then that's a bonus, okay? And I'd rather you be prepared so you're more resilient. Kind of always say to my clients, zip up your Teflon suit around you so it just runs off as much as possible, water off a duck's back, okay? Rather than hoping that they're going to be someone that they just aren't. Okay, so practical essentials to preserve your peace of mind. Well, first of all, get a good team of people around you that can help you, whether that's friends and family who are supportive and positive and helping you. Obviously, we talked about boundaries and getting clear on those. Please don't share any personal information with your ex. And that includes telling them how you feel, what you have for breakfast, what you're doing tomorrow, anything, okay? Any conversation with your ex or communication is just keep it to the absolute essential that they need, okay? Whether that's, what time they're picking the kids up or, something that they need to tell the kids' teacher or homework or something like that. But please, 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 if you have to have a conversation with them, then there's lots of tools to help you with that. But I would strongly suggest you still don't go into any personal information about you, or if you're dating or anything, if you're upset about what they've just said to you or any of that, I don't want you to share that with them, okay? Because they will take it and potentially use that against you. What we want to be doing is having general chit-chat conversations, okay? About the weather, about school, about something over there, or politics or something, just not about how you are and what you're feeling. Again, with them, it's very easy. All you need to do is ask them a question about themselves. It's their favorite topic, they'll be off. So that's a good one to start with. Keep all necessary contact emails so you've got a record. I always suggest to my clients that they set up a separate email address so it's not the normal one, so they can still have their friends emailing them or maybe work emailing them, but they're not going to suddenly get that email where their heart goes, okay? Again, another really powerful tool that I'm probably best known for, it works. I can't tell you how it works, but it is so powerful, is not using your ex's full name. So for example, if your ex is called Robert or Rachel, you just call them R, okay? And I'm not talking a capital R, I'm talking a teeny little r, okay? So whether you're talking, you're texting, you're typing, you're dealing with your lawyers, I don't care. I don't want you to have your ex's name flashing up in your face, okay? Because that's a very evocative thing, a name, okay? So if you can, just use the first initial, keep it small. Don't change it to, a rude word or anything like that, because that, again, has a lot of emotion. I want you to take all the significance out, okay? I want you to dial down any triggers that you've got with them and just make them insignificant, okay? So that is the worst thing for them anyway, but for you, it will really help, okay? Keep a diary of what's going on. It's really important, even though I know it can be a bit of a drag sometimes. I can't tell you how useful it is if you end up going to court, if you've got records that are dated. Try and treat your divorce as a job, okay? Take the emotion out. Look at it just as a game strategically, what they're doing here, what they're doing there, what's their outcome, rather than seeing it as a personal attack on you, because they do this to everybody. If you need support, please reach out to your local domestic abuse charity. There are lots in this country. We're really lucky in the UK. For those of you that are tuning in from the UK, we are the leading country in the world on domestic abuse support. Okay, so use the people that they are amazing. I mean, the Dash team are based down Windsor, Maidenhead, and Slough. We're in that area. But there are Women's Aid, there are Save Lives. There's so many amazing charities. So do reach out to your local one, because they'll know the local community and services and put you in touch with people that you didn't even know existed that could help you. And as I said before, just have the faith that this will end and you will get through it, even if you don't know the how at this stage. So looking after yourself, it's important that you look after you. So taking regular time out from thinking about your case. You know, if you're going through a divorce, it can be all consuming and all you think about. And I totally get that. I've so been there myself. But what I used to do is put things in a little box in my head. I used to go, right, I just need a break from this. Worrying about it for the next hour is not going to make anything any better. So what I'm going to do is put it in a little box and shut it and lock it in my head. You know, and if you can try and create some space where you're not thinking about it, knowing that you can open the box back up if you need to, or when you need to, but just allowing yourself some space, okay? Because this is super draining, and emotional stress can be much more draining than you can anticipate. You can feel very tired and lethargic because of the emotional stress. So you want to try and keep that to a limit. Mind movies is a technique, but it's a bit of a long one, so, and I'm just conscious of time. But moving your body, you know, getting outside, like in this picture, getting out to nature, I mean, that is really therapeutic. Do get up and get dressed, do brush your teeth, do still have a shower, you know, do put on some smart clothes, don't live in your joggers all the time. Try and make yourself presentable, because I know it's a slippery slope, and I know some days you're going to want to be just, you know, looking a mess. That's okay, but not all the time, okay? But to try and keep reminding yourself of what life can be like. Addressing those emotions, not stuffing them away. Avoiding extremes, like, for example, too much drink. You know, a glass of wine can take the edge off. A bottle of wine, you're really going to suffer, and it's going to hamper your recovery. Limit who you tell your story to. Did you know that every time you tell your story, you relive the whole pain again? Because your brain doesn't know the difference between it going on right now and you telling something from the past. So your body goes, oh, that really hurts, and I remember this, and then, you know, and this happened, and you relive it all, and then, you know, then you've got another friend you've got to update, and another friend. You know, ask for help if you need it from the professionals, but maybe swap that sad story. And I'm not taking away from how sad it is, because I know the stories are horrific, but actually maybe getting your friends to support you in what you can do today to feel a little bit better, or maybe, you know, meeting them for a coffee now that that's possible, or you know, maybe planning something that you can do in the future together. So trying to get them to help you with the moving on, rather than just constantly talking about the difficult stuff. Self-reliance. One of the things that when you're in a toxic relationship is you become very reliant on your partner. So self-reliance is learning to trust yourself again and your instincts, okay, as we talked about earlier. So the important thing is to be kind to yourself, trust yourself. One of the things I would say is try making decisions the first time it comes up. So, for example, you've got a situation, you've got to make a decision of what to do. It could be really small, but instead of picking up that phone straight away to call your friend or your mom or whoever it is that you would go to normally to say, oh, I'm not sure what to do, before you do that, ask yourself, what would I do? What do I think I should do? What do I think the best answer for me might be right now? And then phone that person and double check it. But that's how you start to build that self-reliance muscle again, so that you start to, because you realize, actually, yeah, I was pretty right. I did get it right. That's what I would have said. Okay, fine. Then as you build that, you become more self-reliant, which puts you back in control. My top tip is don't rely on your ex for anything. Okay, now it's not always possible financially, but if you can, things like picking the kids up, they're going to mess you around potentially. You know, they're going to look for ways to upset you, remember? So pulling back emotionally from it is, okay, what can I put in place so that this doesn't impact me? So maybe there's somebody, I've got a client at the moment she's got 2 kids. She takes one every week to swimming, and he picks the other one up and takes him to football, but quite often he doesn't turn up or he's late. So what she's done since our coaching session is arrange with someone else who's going to the football to pick him up and take him every time. Okay, now dad can still go and turn up and watch the match. That's fine. So, but the kid will always be there on time, and the kid will always be doing where they need to be. And she's never going to be left short thinking, gosh, he's at home on his own, he's not made the match, he's upset. So she's taken her control back. So have a think about the areas that currently maybe you think you've got to depend on your ex for, but actually you could take your control back if you asked yourself, what could I do differently so I'm not 100% reliant on them right now? And again, there's lots of different ways. Trauma sometimes stays in the body, okay? So whilst coaching is really effective and understanding these tools will help you a lot of the way, I'm a massive, massive fan of these things. So for trauma recovery, okay, some of you may not have been through trauma, But those of you that have and maybe have PTSD from it, or get triggered or panic attacks still, sometimes that's because the residual trauma lives in your body still, even though you're pretty strong up here. So things like osteopathy, hypnotherapy, energy healing, tapping, EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprogramming, terrible name, very effective technique, very simple and easy to use. And obviously watching what you eat. So here's some suggestions that when my program, so my, I'm going to tell you about in a minute, here we go, my retreat. So I'm running a retreat called How to Divorce an Abusive Partner and Recover from a Toxic Relationship on the 12th to the 16th of July. It's 1 hour in the evening, a night, followed on some of those evenings by breakup support groups with other people going through it, so you can meet people going through similar things and ask me questions live too. But the important thing about this is that it's about getting you back up and running again, putting you back in the driving seat and giving you the tools not only to understand what you've been through, but also introducing you to videos and interviews that I've done with people in the fields that I've talked about. Some of the holistic healers, some of the, we've got divorce lawyers, we've got survivors of very horrific abuse. We've got interviews with incredible leaders in this country, like the Domestic Abuse Commissioner, as well as lots and lots of other people, survivors of the family court system, all sorts of different things that people have been through. So that, you know, I'm a coach and I stay in my lane, but there's lots of people that have advice and help that will totally help you with this sort of one-stop shop package of everything, giving you access to all the tools you need and all the experts, so you have your own support team to get you through and help you move forward. So on my website, again, there's a free guide on how to divorce an abusive partner, but a lot of that is, well, more than that is covered in what we've done today. I just want to leave you with one final thought before I take your questions. You may have the scars, physical or emotional, from a toxic relationship, but please know they do not have to define you. And this is where you start to take back your control, rediscover your identity, and create a future that you are truly excited to live. And you can do it. Thank you for listening, and I will stop sharing. So